Good morning. Again, it's an honor to be here. This is my fourth straight year here, and a lot has changed, so I'm going to take you through a lot of things that have changed. And I think you're going to find out throughout the day, which is really exciting, is that over my 4 years attending thinktravel in Madrid, I tend to be the only session in English. However, this year, you're going to see a lot of sessions in English, so I think, for the most part, I've been a trendsetter over the years to bring you English-based sessions. So look forward to that throughout the day. So interesting, as I was preparing for this year's talk, is I went back and looked at my presentation from 4 years ago to really bump up and compare what has changed over the years. And I think what was striking to me in some of the stuff that we'll take you through is the trends really are pretty similar. However, what we've seen is just the kind of the hyperinflation of really what is happening. So there's a couple things that kind of jumped out at us, but not a lot has changed in terms of the trends. It's just how fast we're moving and the pace that we're moving over the last 4 years. And I'm going to give some stats for what we talked about in 2008. So what I want to do is go through some trends and provide some perspective about what's happening in the US, what's happening in the States with our clients, and then at the same time provide you with some insight into what Google's thinking about as we look at some of these trends and some of the challenges that it creates. So as we're going through the presentation, think about how these challenges face your guys' lives every day. And so when we get to the question and answer portion, please pose some very challenging questions, because all these trends bring up challenges, and we face it every day, and we face it with you all every day. So think about that as we go through that. So the 4 areas I want to go through are really search, mobile, social, and video. And Bernardo touched on a lot of this. I'm going to bring it kind of from a travel perspective, from a US standpoint, and take you through how we think about this. So on the search side, what has really changed in the last 3 years since 2008 is search has really intensified. Our consumers are getting much more demanding in terms of what they want from us, the type of questions they ask us, which leads to a challenge of, are we able to answer those questions that they're actually looking for? So I went back to the presentation in 2008, and consumers were asking similar questions, but they were more vague and higher level. So an example would be, when I'm searching for travel in New York, consumers may say, hotels in New York. What has really changed over the last several years is consumers are getting much more demanding with what they're asking for. So they're asking hotels in New York near Central Park. That's a very challenging query to ask in this format. So we have to ask ourselves, how do we better answer those queries when a consumer is looking for hyper information, hotels near Central Park? How do we answer that? And this becomes extremely important as queries are growing significantly. So if you look back in 2008, queries have grown 3x from that standpoint. So our ability to be able to answer this at scale is increasingly important. And then what hasn't changed is over the last several years, consumers are still going to a lot of sites before they actually book. So they're going to 17 sites over 8 sessions. So that begs the question, why are they still going to so many sites? And I would argue a couple of reasons. One is there's a lot of content out there. So we have a lot of great partners out there in the room that are hoteliers and airlines and destination and tourism boards and car rental companies. So there's a lot of content out there. So what's the best way to be able to deliver that? So we need to be able to think about, how can we condense that shopping process and make it a lot more efficient for consumers to get the information, get the right content, get them over to our partners to be able to actually book travel. So we think we can actually, hopefully, shorten that process up a little bit and make it a lot more easier for consumers to get the information. So the challenge for our partners is to make sure that when they're asking for that information, that you all are surfacing that information in a meaningful kind of way and giving them exactly what they're looking for. So with the challenge of demanding consumers, rising queries, and the extended booking cycle, what have we been doing at Google to be able to address this? And I'm not going to go into tons of detail here because my colleague Alex is going to be going through some demos later today to go into a little more depth in some of these areas. But if you think about the 2 areas we've really been focused on with hotels and flights, go back to my example that I just gave a little earlier, where a consumer searches for hotels in New York near Central Park. So again, very difficult to answer in its current format, but some testing that we've been doing is, wouldn't it be great if we could provide the consumer with more information on room type? Wouldn't it be great if we knew what dates they actually wanted to stay there? wouldn't it be great if we could surface reviews and ratings that we're getting from our users to be able to provide that to the consumer so they can have better information. So when we send them over to our advertisers and our partners, everybody sitting in this room, they're a much more qualified customer, and you have a lot more information about them when they come over to you that they can hopefully convert. And again, back to the earlier, can we condense that travel cycle from 17 sites and 8 sessions to something a lot shorter by asking that type of information and getting that information up front? So the second piece of that is the obvious question, is pricing and availability. So we had a challenge when we decided we needed to ask more questions of our users. How do we get that pricing and availability information to surface that in a meaningful kind of way to our customers? So a lot of folks in the room know we've been out having conversations where we've been getting connections to be able to surface that pricing and availability from OTAs, CRSs, suppliers, to be able to get that information. And that's not an easy process. That's a technology endeavor where we have to make connections to be able to get that inventory. And then we have to figure out ways to be able to surface that in a meaningful kind of way. And as we go along, we've been integrating this type of information in different spots throughout the search process, as well as experimenting with kind of a standalone solution called Hotel Finder, which Alex will take you through the details and play with that a little bit. But that allows consumers to ask more information. There's a polygon within Hotel Finder where I can really narrow that search. So when I'm searching for hotels in New York City near Central Park, do I mean Central Park South? Do I mean the west side? Do I mean the east side? So that allows the consumer to really narrow in exactly on what they're looking for. And then if you look at our flight endeavor, so we recently acquired a company, ITA, and 6 months ago we started the integration process. And if you think about Google's key tenets of speed and transparency, ITA was the perfect partner to be able to help us do this on the flight side. And I think one thing you'll notice when Alex takes you through a demo, and for folks in the room that deal with connections and inventory and GDSs, especially on the airline side, the first thing you'll notice, it's super fast. And that was the key to any of this. It's got to be super fast, and it's got to be meaningful information and transparent to the consumer. So we have a little experiment that we just launched recently, and Alex will take you through that in a little more detail. So next, what I want to go through is mobile. Mobile's big. And if you look at the global adoption, and Bernardo touched on some of this, is what has enabled this? And I think about my daily lifestyle. So I commute into New York City an hour and a half each way. 4 years ago when I started commuting, my mobile phone couldn't handle the type of things I wanted to do on it. So when I would go to work, I would open up my laptop and I would do my work all the way into the office and then home again. I haven't opened my laptop in about a year and a half, 2 years, because my mobile device now has speed. So think about 3G. 3G is exponentially increased our capabilities as well as the devices. So there's now 4G, and for a non-techie, understanding what 4G means, 3G is not a one increment jump to 4G. 4G is 4 times faster than 3G. So think about what this is going to allow us to be able to do at scale across the board in mobile and provide a great experience for what our users are looking for. And then in 2008 when I was here, Android wasn't even on the radar screen. And now we're activating 500,000 Android devices a day in the marketplace. So iPhones and Android devices have allowed consumers to do what they actually would like to do and have a similar experience to what they're doing on the desktop and be able to get the information in a faster kind of way. And travelers have followed. So travelers have really adopted mobile in a meaningful kind of way. Again, in 2008, only 10% of travelers were using mobile devices to do travel research. That number is 25% today. Again, that's because of the speed, that's because of the type of information that I can get on my mobile device, and it's just really escalated. What we need to do from a challenging standpoint is to be able to provide that great experience to our customers. And then compounding this from a challenging standpoint is mobile is global. And so that begs the question from a technology standpoint for those in the room that are really dealing on a global basis. How do I develop a mobile solution that's actually global, compounding that with the challenge of how do I make a mobile marketing campaign global? So a lot of elements really at play here with the escalation of this really, really fast growing landscape. How do I evolve and how do I meet the challenges of it? And the tenet we have in the hallways at Google is mobile first. So whenever we talk to clients, either from an advertising standpoint or technology about the trends, we talk about mobile first. So anytime you think about a campaign, think about a mobile slant to it, why that's important, and why the technology on our customer side needs to meet that. So a kind of startling or staggering fact is 70% of advertisers' website is not optimized to where it needs to be from a mobile standpoint. So although consumers are looking for travel, they want to experience it with our customers, a lot of our customers aren't providing that experience that mobile allows for today. So again, that poses the challenges we'll talk about, on the talkback with the panel discussion on how do you weigh resources internally to put technologists against what is necessary to really be able to compete in the mobile space today. And the fact that 25% of queries now for travel are on mobile devices. So think about, 3 years ago, this was a single-digit number, and even, a year ago, year and a half ago, this was a single-digit number. Now, 25% of all travel queries, and this is continually escalating every month. Every month we look at a new number, and it continues to increase. So who knows, maybe a year from now, when hopefully Javier invites me back, this may be a 50% number. So the fact that from a technology standpoint and from a marketing perspective, we need to make sure globally that we're able to follow the trend of what's happening in the space. So a couple of trends I wanted to talk about that really have emerged in the space. So I pose a question, has anyone from a business travel standpoint or even leisure taken a trip into a market and booked that hotel while you're in market on that day? Anyone? Raise your hands, anyone. Okay, that's actually what's happening a lot on mobile devices. So intuitively, we would think, all right, a consumer has a flight booked, they have their hotel booked, they show up in market, they consummate that transaction. But what's happening in reality, and then when the consumers tell us this information, it makes us react to it and do something from a technology standpoint to accommodate that. So if consumers are actually booking close in, often same day, in close proximity in a market, some are within a mile, some are within 20 miles, how do we facilitate that? Because that's what the consumers are doing. So from an advertising standpoint, we launched a solution called Click to Call. So a lot of consumers are on their mobile devices, maybe they're not able to actually consummate the transaction fully on the online, and they actually want to talk to somebody on the telephone. So we have an ad format where I can just click the phone number, call the property directly, and book that transaction. So we looked at the trend that people are booking close in, they're booking close to hotels, they actually want to talk to people sometimes. Let's help consumers with what they really want to do. And then what's really interesting is, we're missing a slide here, but if you think about it, is it hard to inspire? So we talked about a lot about the booking stage. How can you inspire travel on a mobile device? I mean, it seems pretty hard to inspire somebody on a mobile device because it's small, it seems kind of transaction oriented. But a recent campaign that Weston executed, which was really cool, was they did an advertising campaign within a weather application. So what they did is every time the weather dipped below 35 degrees, they served up an ad for Weston hotels in beach and destination locations. So that's pretty amazing, where on my little mobile device, I'm not thinking about travel, it's cold outside, and I get an ad that says, wouldn't you like to get away to a beach destination? That's inspiring me within the travel cycle and to push me to get deeper into the process. So let's move from mobile and talk about social a little bit. So my presentation in 2008, we didn't talk about social really at all. All we really talked about at that point was reviews. And TripAdvisor has been the leader in that area for a long time now. But so much has changed over the last 4 years on the social space. So obviously, with around 50% of consumers looking to their friends for insights on where to go, where to travel to, as well as review sites being very, very important to that process, social is very important. So the challenge is, how do we use reviews in a meaningful kind of way? How do we use recommendations from our friends in a meaningful kind of way, from a user standpoint and from an advertiser's perspective? So literally, this was just announced last week that Starwood is now going to be taking reviews from clients, their own reviews, and surfacing them on their website. To me, that's absolutely revolutionary. If I stood here in 2008 and told you that a hotel supplier would be taking reviews from their clients and putting them on their website, I'm guessing 90% of the people in the room would have said that would never happen. Absolutely crazy. So we've seen over the last several years where you all have acknowledged the fact that reviews are very important. users and consumers really want that information to make a purchase decision, and we need to have a thick skin with this. So let's listen to what the customers are saying, let's surface that, and it should actually help us with conversion and to help us with insight into what we need to do to improve the experience as well as improve the property experience on property. So again, it was really about reviews 4 years ago. So the question that Google asked internally is, how do we make search more social? So it's a complicated question. So as Bernardo was touching on, I think, which I understood him, the couple words and the couple slides that I can interpret, is so we launched a +1 button. And what that allows everyone to do is for me to be able to like or recommend a business or a location or a brand that I have an affinity towards. So then my friends can see, hey, I really like the Westin in Hawaii, as well as when I look and do searches, I can see that my friends are recommending certain places or locations or airlines or car rentals, whatever it is. And that's very important because I look to my friends all the time. So word of mouth, which we were talking about 4 years ago, this basically replaces word of mouth where I can see what my friends are liking during the search process. So I can see within the search process when I search for hotels in New York in Central Park, what my friends are actually recommending, where they like to stay, and what that feedback is. So if I want more, I can go a little deeper and ask them more questions. So let's move on to video. So video is a fascinating area, and a lot's changed in the last 3 years. So on the video front, 50% of consumers and travelers are utilizing videos before actually making a purchase decision. So in 2008, that number was 1 in 7, which is absolutely amazing how much consumers have been adopting video to make purchase decisions. And then 4 years ago, everybody shook their head in amazement when I told you that 15 hours of video were uploaded to YouTube every minute. 15 hours. That number is 48 hours today. 48 hours of video content is uploaded to YouTube every minute. Imagine all the travel content that's part of that. Absolutely staggering. So it begs the question from a challenge standpoint, how do you integrate video into your marketing strategy? And we have these conversations with customers every day. And the question is, do I use user-generated content that's already out there? Do I create my own content? Do I associate myself with professional content that's already out there? So it's a very difficult question and a very challenging question. And I think a good way to illustrate this is to give a couple examples of what some partners are doing. So Delta Airlines recently launched a campaign that integrates social as well as video into it. So the TED platform, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the TED platform, where leaders in various industries talk about what some might consider very mundane things, but it's meant to push consumers to think really differently. So one of the TED series is around tying your shoe differently. So how can tying your shoe differently have anything to do with travel? But they use this to get consumers to think a little differently and make suggestions. So Delta's gone out to the customers and asked them, how could we improve the flight experience? So one of the pieces of feedback I think is on the slide here is that somebody making the suggestion that I'm 6'4", 6'6", whatever the person's size is there a way for me to be able to get a better seat on a plane? And is there the ability for you to be able to delineate between someone who's 5'3" and somebody who's 6'4" to give a better experience? So it's pushing consumers with video to get them to think differently. And then JetBlue also launched a campaign where they developed a whole creative campaign around challenging consumers to demand a similar experience in the air that they get on the ground. And they did so in a very quirky way that works well with the YouTube community. So they launched a campaign on YouTube, and a lot of it spread virally. So the question and the challenges remain, how do we integrate video into our strategy every day to make sure it hums based on the trends that consumers are using videos to make purchase decisions in travel? So the complicating factor in all this is it's all connected now. And consumers have all these access to devices throughout the day. So I have my mobile phone on my bus trip in the morning. I get on my PC at work. I'm on my tablet when I'm home at night. So the question remains, how do I get them the right information, the consumer, the right information at the right time on the right device? So back to my earlier point, if I'm on a mobile device and the type of content I'm looking for may be a little different than what I'm looking for on the PC. So I need to make sure that I, as an advertiser and a partner, am giving them that information they're looking for at the appropriate time when they need it. So these are just a few trends that we're really hyper-focused on in the US as well as globally. And these are a couple of the trends that we're going to go through during the talk back today. But I look forward to asking my esteemed partners to come up on stage, and we'll do a little talk back and have them talk about their business and the challenges that we all face. And as we go through it, feel free to ask questions, because that'll make it a that much more enjoyable session. Thank you.